I really adored Audrey, and it is just so twisted and bizarre, and it was just a pleasure throughout, even though it's also so incredibly dark. But so my first question is for Lou specifically. So can you tell us a little about just the bonkers, almost like feminist nature of Audrey, which just had screenings at the Palm Springs Film Festival? So I know you previously spoke about writing, quote, unlikable women,
Mm.
so women characters. So why is that important to you, and how does that play a part in Audrey?
For me, it's I've always been interested in writing or creating characters that I didn't know that they were unlikable. Let's be very clear here. I just like to write about like women and experiences that I thought were interesting or I thought were kind of funny and stuff. And the people to carry those films and those stories are really often kind of an outsider or somebody that wants something that is outside of what society says is normal. Right. So like the thing with Ronnie that makes everyone uncomfortable, and yes, so when I say this, it'll kind of sound weird, is that what she wants is outside of what the normal kind of woman, what we expect a woman to want in society. You know, to be happy to just be a mom, to be happy with the fact that they had a bit of a career, you know, be happy with the partner that they're with, be happy with their kids, you know, the ones that they birthed, and they're like, oh, this is what I got. You know, like that's the kind of so yeah. So I kind of like am really interested in that, but I think that's just inherently in me. So whenever I start writing anyone or anything like that, it's always coming from that kind of, I think, the slightly kind of outsider perspective that I think is very normal. I think there's lots of people like this. I think there's lots of people that relate to it. I think whenever you do that and someone goes, oh, they're unlikable, which I don't like, I think they're actually incredibly relatable. And I think that's what scares people sometimes.
I feel that in a way, Ronnie is almost speaks for what a lot of people wish they could say and do, but just they live in their heads and don't wind up doing it. And I think also, I think, quote, unlikable women, or like you said, you didn't know they were unlikable when you were writing them. I feel like, that's now we see more of that. And I know it's been years, but like HBO's Girls is like a perfect example of
Hmm.
it's like in a way, though all those characters are so flawed and but everyone loves that show. It works. So okay, so Natalie, in a previous interview, you said you relate to Jackie Van Beek's character, like we were just kind of talking about this, of Ronnie, and that people approach you with almost parenting woes after seeing Audrey. So why do you think this bizarre satire or maybe bizarre satires like Audrey, but Audrey specifically, obviously, why do you feel that it speaks to so many people who are parents and non-parents alike?
Yeah, I think as Lou was saying, it does speak to parents. I have had friends, and one in particular who I would not name and shame, obviously. And I really appreciate that they can talk about this. That said, I wish I never had the second child. And they've just been such, terrors and have terrorized everyone. Not everyone is the perfect child. And people go through different things where they are, your terrible twos, your teenage, I don't know, cranky. I find I'm constantly, listening to my friends, even though I feel like I cannot speak of it because I'm not a parent, but only because I've had collective people speak to me about their parenting issues that I do start to feel like a psychiatrist in parenting. Um, so I do think people do relate to it because we've, even if you haven't had children, you've been a teenager before. We've all been teenagers if we are adults. Um, an 8-year-old won't relate to it yet, hopefully. That's that's something, they shouldn't relate to. But we've either been teenagers or we've had children, um, and or both. So
Teenagers that have
there's
had
a lot.
children.
Yes, yes. So there's a lot that people can relate to, but it is a great thing to be able to watch something and hear it said out loud
Right.
and see the extreme on it and know I would never go there. So for me, even just to just feel, bad about it has to have times when I'm not feeling great about being a parent, when I'm not enjoying the role, or when I wish I was doing something else with my life. And to see someone live out that fantasy for you is sometimes great because it's not going well. So that's also good. It doesn't go, always go
Yeah.
well. So yeah, I think there's a lot to relate to. We did have in one audience screening, Lou wasn't there, thank God. She would have had a heart attack, maybe. Two 8-year-olds, I think they're about 8-year-olds in the screening in Brisbane at its its, opening in Brisbane. And I couldn't work out why they were there. I was looking across the aisle. They were right near me, across the aisle. And I thought, who brings 8-year-olds to this film? And then I realized they were the children that were
Mhm.
in
Exactly, yeah.
the Ronnie's class.
Oh,
And they'd come along to parents brought them along to see what they'd been in,
right.
a fun family film. So,
Family magic.
so those 8-year-olds, I don't know, maybe they took something away from it, I'm sure.
Right, right. Oh, that's
Hopefully
amazing.
not too much damaging content for them.
That'll be fine. I remember what I watched when I was 8. You
Yes.
Like, can't be any worse than watching the destruction of your parents' relationship, I think. Not mine, but I'm just saying, like, lots of 8-year-olds would have done
Right.
that.
That's true.
Being like
That's true.
teased in a school play, like, I mean,
They've seen worse.
I
Yeah.
always kind of just go, perspective. Let's just give it a little bit of perspective. It's a
Exactly.
movie.
Or, this movie is make believe. An
Yeah, you have to
extreme.
remind people of that. You have to be like, even adults, you're like, this is fictional.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. We're not saying, well, you should do this. It's not
Right.
a
We're not.
how-to manual.
Right. Ronnie isn't exactly Mother of the Year. And that's okay. Um, so okay,
No,
so
she is. She is.
oh yeah,
She
totally, totally.
is. Like, I was about to go, yeah, she is. And there's
Remake
lots of examples of bad
way.
moms around.
So from projects like the Tony Award winning musical Dear Evan Hansen to 2022's Norwegian horror comedy Sick of Myself. I know that's kind of a deep cut, but I think that's a fabulous movie. So these themes of almost taking ownership of another person's trauma or almost parading your own tragedies or flaunting your own personal tragedies, these kinds of themes have popped up a lot recently. And I don't know if there's a particular reason for it. I noticed even in Audrey, there's a social media aspect that I think
Mm.
kind of ties into this. So, why do you think this is such a current conversation, and how does Audrey fit into this conversation?
I think that social media has a lot to do with it, like a lot of why we're talking about it and stuff like that. You see any sort of event that's happening that's really traumatic, everyone's got their hot take on it, whether they're part of it or not, or they're like in the same town or whatever it is and stuff like that. And I think everyone's got a window shop now, like a window front, to give their opinion, showcase, and all that kind of stuff like that. And so they become like the central character in their own life. Like we all are the central character in our own life, we absolutely are. But I think it's like it's exacerbated now. That's why I'm always a bit confused when people are like, "Oh, I don't know anyone like Ronnie." And I'm like, I mean, I was listening to a podcast on Ruby Franks the other day, the mum that, you know what I mean? Like I'm like, there's heaps of this stuff. I just have to look on Instagram and I can see all these people there. And I probably know some,
Yeah, there's
as
narcissists
well.
everywhere,
Yeah,
relatable.
and so you kind of like it feeds that. So I don't know, like we didn't want to be you don't want to kind of be on the nose about it at all. And when I was first writing it, social media wasn't what it has become. I would say even in the last 4 years. I remember
Mm.
Twitter when it was nice, which shows my age, you know.
Okay.
When everyone was like, "Oh, great," and all that sort of stuff. And now it's just like, die already. And you're like, okay, all right, I'm out. So I think people want to talk about it because I think it is a shift in how we interact with each other that has happened. And I think that as artists, we try and explore that through film, theater, photography, whatever it is, music, and that because we're trying to make sense of it because this is our new normal.
Right.
And so I actually don't think that Ronnie is kind of like so left of field. I think she
Mm,
perfectly fits into the year 2025.
Yeah.
mm.
You know,
It is very
like,
interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting too, as you say, Lou. People will talk. There are certain people who will talk about their PTSD and this and that, and really share on on social media and use that platform. Some because they really need it. They really need that
yeah.
support network. And so it's really important. You think about how social media has brought, certainly in Australia, I'm sure it's helped First Nations, become formed together more and be able to and around the world, create stronger groups to be able to fight for rights and things like that. So there's a real positive to social media. Um, but yes, there is also, yeah, just and I can't help looking, and I'm sure everyone does sometimes. There's such trauma happening in
Mm.
LA at the moment, and you think who is capitalizing here and there on it, which is interesting, using those moments. But then, uh, yeah, so I feel like, as Louis said, this is quite normal to hear people, getting something back when their life feels empty and when something's going on, to at least get like some likes and loves from anyone around the world, that they might not see or whatever for something that's happening in their life can just make them feel so much better.
Oh
Um,
yeah, absolutely. I think it connects. I think it's got really good positives. Absolutely. I think people for a long time didn't feel heard, and I think people like Ronnie probably get dismissed. Like I think, the Karening of women of a certain age is problematic.
Yes.
yes.
Stuff like that, because it's already, that's a group of, and I'm not saying that sometimes it's not rightfully deserved, by the way, but I do think that that general kind of like, oh, she's a Karen just because she was like, oh, I got the wrong product, or you know what I mean, like something like that, because I've seen that happen where people aren't escalating a situation, they're just there and someone just rolls their eyes and you're like, a lot
Yeah.
of these women of a certain age, they've fought for recognition, they've fought for a voice, they've tried to, they've become kind of silenced, they don't retire with the same amount of money that their partners do, they don't have, women's health, they don't have all that sort of stuff in that, and they're kind of like, I
A
feel like
boiling pot, really.
we're boiling point,
Yeah.
and that.
Mm.
And I feel like anytime you kind of just slab a whole group with one sort of stereotype like that, it's got problems in it, And I'm not saying it doesn't come from a like, hey, this is happening and we need to talk about it place and we need to kind of reconcile with it. But then the sweeping other side of it is like it's everyone, And as a middle-aged woman, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, cool. I'm entering my the
Right.
Karening phase
I,
of life,
I was born
So
part
I think
Karen, so
yeah,
it's fine.
that's
it,
it. Yeah. Like I think it's good, but I think also at the same time, like like the dance that Audrey does in the film, the TikTok kind of dance. That was Ronnie had one of them as well when her daughter was in a coma. And that was because I remember seeing a video that my partner sent me, which was of a woman who was in like the NICU ward, like the ICU ward with her baby, and talking about the fact that her baby couldn't breathe and was in intensive care, but she did it to a dance,
yes.
the trauma TikToks. Yeah. And I was just completely blown away. Now, cut to, she's got her own television show now, which is
Oh,
like just mind blowing, right? But like when like we settled on that like 3 years ago or something, we were like, oh yeah, this is crazy, right? Like this is
Crazy and
insanity.
wonderful. Hmm.
Wonderful, for us, it's a gift.
Yes.
And we're like, oh, mwah, great, wonderful. And then like I was like watching TV and this ad came up and I was like, God, she looks familiar. And I was like, oh God, and she's got her own TV show, now. And so you're kind of like, I don't think it's that unlikely that, Ronnie
It's
won't get
not
her own.
unlikely.
right.
So there was a scene that, yeah, originally existed that we didn't make the cut at the time, but it was one of our favorites.
One
So
of
it was
my
a hard
favorites.
baby to lose, which was
But we
Ronnie.
filmed it, so we've got
We
it
filmed
somewhere.
it. We filmed
Yeah.
it. We should put it out sometime. Is Ronnie dancing, doing a trauma dance next to the bed of comatose Audrey.
Audrey, yeah.
But it was so early on the film, people were worried about, not being able to access Ronnie. It's that likability thing that people go
Yeah, I
into,
was about to go. She wasn't likable just yet. They didn't want to
Yeah,
like
she
throw
wasn't
her.
likable just yet. So it was a shame because we're like, no.
Right.
Uh, Yeah.
No. Oh, so good. It was so
And
good.
So
Yeah.
yes, as Lou says, it did exist. It does exist. People are out there doing this.
I actually had seen one, I think it was literally a week ago, that was like a new batch of from this one creator of, I guess, yeah, trauma dances, as you put it, because that is exactly what it is. And so yeah, I'd seen one just a week ago, and then I saw it in Audrey, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is exactly the culture that is happening right now, and it's bizarre. And just in terms of, yeah, maybe these YouTubers or Instagram influencers or TikTokers, maybe they're not, taking advantage quite, maybe a majority of them aren't taking advantage of
Mm.
daughters in a coma, hoping they don't wake up. Maybe that's not the reality, but like you said, Lou, you didn't want it to be too on the nose. And I think it's almost like if you look between the lines of how bizarre social media is becoming, that is what Audrey is in a way.
Mm.
And that's how I saw it at least. And I just thought, it speaks to the culture right now, which is in a very twisted, dark way. Which is amazing. Um, and okay, so actually, it's debatable who the villain, quote, villain of who the villain of Audrey is. But Audrey herself, the titular like nightmare daughter, she has almost no redeemable qualities about her. At the same time, I personally saw this balance of you can also see her behavior is like she's like screaming for attention at the same time she has too much attention, but it's not the attention she wants from her mother. So how was it in terms of both writing and directing Josephine Blazier, who was fabulous as Audrey, how was it finding that balance of she's horrible but also you feel for her in a strange way?
Ooh. Writing it, it was the fact that obviously we need that character to be a certain way in order to get on board Act Three. Like, you kind of have to set it all up. So unfortunately, that kind of I think she does. I think to me, she looks in pain a lot, and she wants that recognition that doesn't come with conditions attached to it. I think there are kids out there and teenagers and that, and you see the results of them in adulthood where their parents' appreciation or love of them is tethered to what they achieve. And when they're not achieving anymore, what is their value to that relationship? And I think it's too soon in kind of Audrey's life to kind of, really understand the ramifications of that or even articulate what it is that she's looking for or needs emotionally. But I think as they get older, and I've definitely seen it with people that I know, it's really hard to find that new relationship with your parents. And that is when maybe she doesn't want to be an actor. Maybe she doesn't want to be like, quote unquote, successful in that kind of way that everyone knows about all the time and that you can boast about, And so what happens when that child who was the one that you used to kind of leverage your own status as a parent, doesn't achieve what you want them to achieve, and then it's like and all that is about that child is just an extension of the parent, right? They're not their own individual person
Mhm.
who can make mistakes and do things and have their own life and all the rest of it. And that like
That must happen in
it's
sport more than anything, right? So in sport,
yeah.
I was thinking,
um,
and sometimes
yeah,
positions as well.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that was a consideration, I think, kind of writing in that. But that's the writing part of it. Natalie, directing.
yeah. So yeah, it was important that I mean, when we auditioned, we did a chemistry test with Jackie and and Josephine and she was very powerful and she frightened us, and that was
Yeah.
great. And we needed that. We need to feel that moment and Jackie felt frightened. She was like, oh God. And that was really important that we could reach that point. I think that was that. So, but really, we wanted to reflect really a teenager,
Yeah.
who wants her own autonomy
Mhm.
more than anything. Is just fighting for autonomy. And that's what most teenagers are. Some are happy to just, chill through life. Some just get to a point where they go, okay, I just want to know who I am. And I think it's a really stressful time for that because you're surrounded by so many people, such pressure. What are you going to be? What are you going to do? Are you going to go to university? All these life changes, all these things about life and your future that you have to make suddenly at 17 or 18 or however old you are. For me, it was 16. So
Mhm.
to yeah, to make such big decisions, a lot of children have breakdowns in grade 11 and 12.
Mhm.
Mm.
A lot of girls in particular have breakdowns in those years because they work so hard and maybe a push to work so hard and put so much pressure on themselves that a lot of it, plus the clearly I didn't go through it, hormonal changes. It's like, well, can't find the word. Um, Going out the other end of it now. It's when you forget what the word is. Um, um, so you go through so many hormonal changes at the same time having to make all these life decisions that yeah, it is a pressure pot that comes out quite horrible. Plus boys or girls, whatever it is you fancy, um, uh, or cats, whatever it is that you really love. All that pressure, sex, everything that's happening, and she's going through that. Um, God, am I going to should I have sex? Should I be a doctor? Should I be an actor? How am I dealing with my emotion? My body's changing. It's stressful. It's stressful. So there is a layer that was really important for us that it was just a teenage girl. Yes, she
Yeah.
lashes out. Yes, she's horrible. It's a teenage kid who's going through a lot. And
Right.
the boys don't look much better, do they? Because Max is
No.
Horrendous.
horrendous. My God,
Absolutely.
I love him. I love
Yeah.
him as the lines that Lou has given him are so great.
So manipulative and so real in a really horrifying way that so many people can be like, ah, I've been there. I've dated someone like that. I've encountered someone like that. And that it's almost maybe slightly over the top, which is, obviously a part of this
Yeah.
movie, but also not that
I
over.
was about to go like, I mean, once someone said to me, they were like, oh, boys are just so much better. They're just so much more educated and aware these days, and they don't put pressure on that way. And I was like, yeah, okay, what about this hypothetical? Like
Yeah.
you go through the consent, you get enthusiastic consent, you do all of that. They're an absolute sweetheart. All the rest of it. What's to stop them waking up the next morning and going, thanks, and just walking out that door and like, never, like we
Which I've
can't.
been through.
Yeah, I mean, like it's like you can't like people can just be, their self. He just wants what he wants, right?
Hmm.
That manipulative thing of like if I tell you that, like he says, if you really loved me, you'd show me,
Yeah.
and I, how
Manipulative.
can we be together?
Yeah.
If you can't show me that, like it's so, and that line, like, when he says to Nora, I think, because you're not in a coma, I think that's why you and I might work. Like it's just such a
That blew my
like
mind.
being that Nora going, oh my God, he sees me.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right,
Um,
I'm not in a coma.
yeah. Yeah, he can see who I truly am, a person who's not in a coma.
Who's like alive and
Love.
functioning. Oh my God,
That's
like
love.
I knew it was gonna happen one day, you know.
Are so low. So, yeah, and I could see obviously a theme throughout this movie is selfishness, and there's different levels to each person. Obviously, Max is like it's pure selfishness, but with other people, like, Ronnie, there's this pain or judgment on, herself, but it's clearly a theme throughout the film.
Mm.
Okay, so Jackie Van Beek, who I also love her in What We Do in the Shadows, by the way. I'm a big fan of that movie, so I was so happy to see her. Jackie Van Beek as a washed-up soap star mother, Ronnie, and Josephine Blazier as the titular nightmare daughter, as I worded it before. Audrey are, they're great, but I found Hannah Deviney as Nora to be such a standout. Her comedic timing is just really stellar, and I know you are both passionate about inclusivity and diversity in film, and that was really important for you when finding an actress to play Nora. So why is spotlighting actors like Hannah and creating characters like Nora important in the grand scheme of things?
I'll let Lou talk to creating the character because I think it's always been, no, I'll let Lou discuss that.
No, it's cool. We know it so intimately together. Like we can finish each other's sentences, especially when we both forget them. Um, um, See, I think it's important because it should just be normal, right? These conversations shouldn't need to happen anymore where we talk about it. It just should be like what we see. And I always write what I see in the world or what I've experienced in the world. And so when people kind of point out that it's, they've got these people in the film and, they're different and it's great and everything. And I'm like, yeah, it's what the world looks like. All what we should be making should reflect the world that we live in, And I have friends, I've worked with people with disability and stuff like that. We all do, whether it's a visible or an invisible one. And so the character had always had CP. And I started working on the script a long time ago. And that it was just a thing of like, I just thought it was interesting for me. Not in the sense that I got to explore somebody having cerebral palsy or anything like that. It was just like some of the funniest people I knew had CP. And I was like, cool, thanks, baby. And I was just like, oh yeah, it's hard to kind of be like, I did it to make myself feel better and reflect the world. And that's my job as a writer and stuff like that. I just think we all have a responsibility to showcase just different people, different bodies, and that whether or not, and also it doesn't always have to be connected to the story either.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's kind of like in this instance, it's connected to the story just in the kind of way of the fact that we play with the idea that the child with CP gets the least amount of attention, right? Like that's we flip it and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of how it works. So I just and it just did everything that we approach. We always look at it like that when we're casting. Oh, that'd be cool. That would be great. Also, it kind of usurps people's ideas and understandings about things as well. We're still at a point where we can do that. The perfect point is after that. But like,
you don't have to think about
the lead in a rom-com shouldn't be, we should be Hannah or someone like Hannah. Do you know what I mean? Like that should and explore those. I love seeing something and seeing a different world that I don't have great insight to or whatever it is and getting something out of it. And that I can still enjoy a film when I don't have like a direct connection to maybe what they're struggling with, but they're a human. And look, Nora's probably the closest to me out of all of the characters in terms of experience and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it was, I don't know, it was just a no-brainer and stuff. And so yeah, so it was just never up for discussion, was it really? It was just like, yeah,
exactly. It's just like that's it. And any project that I'm on, I will usually look at the demographic of a town if it's based somewhere or whatever, and I'll go, okay, that's the demographic, and so that's how I want to reflect that world. And I might twist and turn it a little bit, but that's really important to me. It's really hard for me. I've been on a project recently, won't say which one. Oh, hello.
Few more minutes. Okay.
Cute. Like a koala just came in. So I've been on a project recently where I've said, the diversity behind the screen and in front of the screen was a real issue for me. And I had to fight really hard to get people that with just looking diversely across all roles and in front of the screen. And one of the producers said to me, "Yeah, but in this town, it's a really white town." I was like, "It's not. It's not. It's just perceived as." Also, it's a town where it's hard to talk about this without opening up what it is. But, it's a town where there is a fluctuation of people there. So I didn't believe that. And I think sometimes you do have to reflect it, like in the thick of it. Back then, when we did the thick of it, we were commenting on a really white government.
Right.
At the time, when the first season and that. So, well, that's the comment was on, it is a white government, and these other people we are lampooning. So therefore, fine, you're lampooning and you're showing what is the reality of something. And actually commenting on that there is no diversity is a comment, putting no diversity in is a
Right.
comment on the lack of diversity in that area. But I like to look at the demo. I go to, go to the internet and look, what's the demographic?
Mhm.
What's the breakdown? I look at my neighbors. I look around me, in Melbourne, I had a Polish person, had an Indian person, had, all different people living, Spanish, uh, someone from Southeast Asia living all around me, and there's 7 flats. So all I had to do was look at my block of flats and go, right, well, right here, I've got diversity. Um, yeah, and I had, non-binary, whatever. That was in a block of 7 flats. So it, as Lou says, it's just normal. It's just normal for us. This
Oh,
is normality for us. That's reality. And we would like to reflect that.
right. And Lou, what you said about how it shouldn't a person, what makes a person diverse shouldn't necessarily be about what the plot is about. And I feel like there's a lot of conversations about queer films and how they shouldn't all be about coming out. They should just be about just the person. It shouldn't even really be about their traumas, and it shouldn't always be about that.
Yeah, we
And
shouldn't always have to say that on our experiences shouldn't always have to be reflected back as trauma,
exactly.
and that sort of thing, especially when yeah, I totally agree with that. That's why I like comedy, you know, and that sort of thing. But like I had this conversation yesterday where someone was like, how do you, in your scripts, how do you make it clear that you want certain people and stuff like that? And I've got a character in a pilot at the moment where I wrote the description, blah, 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 not blonde, underlined it. That was like my thing. Now, I don't know what that means, it's just that thing, but it's enough for the people reading it to go, oh, okay.
Right.
Just kind of like just throw them out of whatever it is. And it's fun. I can get away with it because it's comedy, like, and the way that I write, like I've got things where I'm like, I'd love this song, if we have the budget, and that kind of stuff. And you can start to pepper those things through and that. So kind of, making nods to stuff and like calling little things out and everything. But, it's I think we've got so many different stories to tell and stuff like that. And you're right, there's the coming out stories and there's kind of like the midlife crisis period, and then there's like the retiree period, and then there's like all of these periods. We live a long life, And I think I'm really enjoying making content for like, especially like women and stuff like that over the age of like 35, you know, like, or what, like that kind of thing, and up, like there's enough really cool people making stuff for younger people, and they're closer to being younger and stuff like that. They live in a completely different time than I do. Like someone approached me about writing a coming of age film, which, laugh at your pleasure. And they're like 16 or
You just said
17,
it in
Nat.
the
I
90s.
watched Euphoria. Yeah, so I'm like, I am from, yeah, I was a teenager in the 90s, right? So I'm very different. And I was like, and I said, oh, what do teenagers do these days? And someone's like, oh, you should watch Euphoria. It was like watching Kids when it first came out. I was like, oh,
Right.
okay. I mean, I don't think I've done
Yeah.
a lot of those things. Like, I was like, moment. So I had to call the person up and be like, can I just ask a question? Just like, it's just a question or something like that. Do people just still like just get like lightly fingered? Like just a question, does that still, or is it like full Requiem for a Dream at the prom? Like
Oh my goodness, Requiem for a Dream.
I was just trying because I'm not putting that on my computer. I'm not Googling at 45.
Right.
What did I'm getting on the phone. I'm asking that question.
Just a question. Just a question.
Just a question. HR's approved it. I'm allowed to.
So, Natalie, I know that you're, the lead director on Apple TV's Down Cemetery Road. So, what can you tell us about the series, and how does it compare from what you know about Apple TV's adaptation of Mick Herron's Slow Horses? How closely are you working with lead and executive producer Emma Thompson? Like, what can you tell us?
Probably very little.
Got it.
I'm so sorry. Because I sign an NDA, I go, I don't know. I don't
Right.
know what I can tell you. I can tell you that it'll be a really great series. It was so great to work with with Emma Thompson. And yeah, Moana Banks is the showrunner, and I've had a really long relationship with her, working as a director with her and a producer years ago with her. So it was really great to be back with her. She's a very, very funny woman, and in fact writes a show called Funny Woman that she also show runs, and she was a writer on Slow Horses. I can tell you that much, and it's the same producers, executive producers as Slow Horses. These are the things I can tell you.
Everything you
Um,
just said, Bianca, is correct.
yes, everything you said, Bianca, is correct. The only additional thing I can say to you is Moana Banks.
Got it.
Fantastic woman.
Got it.
The writer's great. So yes, they're wrapping up the third block at the moment. So it's still very much in process.
Got it. Okay. I figured there wasn't much, but I still had to try. Um,
See if I do have loose lips, so you could easily get something out of me, but this time I'm
Oh, you
prepared.
did real well. You did real well. Real proud. Real proud.
and I think my final question is just clearly you both work together so well. I know you met during a quote speed dating for people in the entertainment industry, creatives. What does the future of your partnership or creative partnership look like? Can we expect anything else from you two?
We will never work together again.
Together again.
Never. Like, we hate each other. It's
We hate each
horrible.
other.
Horrible. Like, she bullies me. She is like Ronnie.
Yeah,
She
I
says
am.
she's like
I'm a
Nora,
nightmare. Nightmare,
but she's
nightmare,
not.
nightmare.
I'm just waiting for that poison to happen. I just wait. I don't drink any drinks that she offers me. I'm like, no, no, Lou, I will not fall for it.
There might
We
No.
have.
poisoned my kid in Audrey. It's my kid that drinks the hemlock. It's me just being like, oh, we need a kid to poison. Yeah, sure, right. August, over here.
He would not rest.
No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't. He wouldn't. But he's very cute. And I think that,
Yeah,
saves him a
that
lot.
poison didn't work.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we'll work
we
together again. We want to.
absolutely we
Um,
want to.
who
Yeah,
did that? We absolutely want to. Yeah. So, there's some stuff floating around that we're talking about at the moment and that sort of thing. And that, it'll be, look, it'll be funny and it'll be about probably a woman. And it will have adult scenes in it. I can guarantee you that. And stuff like it will have adult concepts. So yeah, that's kind of what we're just like circling around what we want to do next together and stuff like that and everything. Like I'm also developing some TV stuff and that, and Natalie's always kind of my first pick, when she's not working for Emma Thompson. To
you're my first pick above Emma Thompson.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay, then suddenly, I get like an
you
NDA
trump
from
Emma
Emma Thompson,
Thompson.
and I don't even know why I've got it. Like, I don't even know. I know nothing about her other than that she's Emma Thompson.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know. Um, yeah, so that's the idea. We're just got to find the thing that we want to do
Yeah,
Great.
together. Because it's such an
yeah,
intimate relationship, especially the way that we work. Because, we were on set every day together shooting
yeah,
Audrey,
Mhm.
which is odd for a writer as
yeah.
well.
For me, it's
Um,
like a big respect for writers. Too often they get pushed out of the
Right.
We just
pro,
get sacked of it straight away. Like, give us your script. All right, just take their name
bye. Yeah,
and let's just move on.
yeah,
Yeah, but I think that worked well, especially when you're doing comedy, because it's got to be kind of like fresh, sometimes and that. But even though, like, I would say I'd say barely any of the script has any improv work done in
yeah,
it. I would say like 2% or something
Mhm.
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But yeah, and it's good, especially when you're working on an indie film as well. Things change all the time, like in while you're
Mm,
actually shooting. So you're losing things, you're getting a different sort of location. You don't have
mm.
access to that person as long as you thought you did, and stuff like that. And you're just like, okay, we're just got to get these things.
Right.
This is what
Quickly
has to
rewrite
happen,
this, blah blah
So
blah.
you're
So
like
it's good.
writing
Yeah,
ahead all the time and stuff like that, and grabbing things and moving them into different scenes and stuff like that. So I think it's a huge advantage of having the writer there as well to be able to kind of navigate that, when it's happening in real time. And that
yeah. To
obviously
make
makes
smart
my ego
decisions
start
rather
racing.
than Yeah, well, to make smart decisions rather than, rush decisions in a way.
Yeah,
Even if you're
desperate
rushed, at
ones.
least you have the ability to just be able to focus on the right has ability to be able to focus on that rather than,
And you can
okay,
split
I'm trying
it.
to direct
Yeah,
this scene
Natalie.
and think about the
Yeah.
future.
Sometimes you just
Yeah.
see Natalie go, "Oh, that's a writer's thing," and I'd be like, She'd be like, "Is that a writer's?" Or you just don't. You just kind of like. But yeah, look, and I also just think like we had a rule on set that was always like, if it's funnier and better, like why not?
Right.
Like go for it. It also gets
Yeah.
you buy-in from everyone involved. They feel more kind of like connected and heard and stuff like that. And I think that's what you want. This is everyone's story, and that's what I love when I'm watching it, and talking to actors, especially the actors that have smaller roles in it as well. They really they get so excited and they see themselves, and it's so delightful. It's very overwhelming
Right.
and stuff. So, yeah, Natalie and I just have to find another project that encapsulates all of that
Got it.
and, to the expectations of Audrey. But yeah, there's definitely stuff in the works
There
at the
is.
moment.
Oh, I'll be on the
Mhm.
lookout. Thank you so much for speaking with me. This has been really lovely, and I'll be on the lookout for your next joint project.
Cool,
Thanks,
great. Good to
Bianca.
meet you,
Thanks
Bianca.
for chatting to us.
Much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.